one ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. This is Outlaw Bookseller, Stephen E. Andrews, collector, bookseller, writer, author of 100 must-read fantasy novels, 2009. And today we're going to do another Tolkien video. We're going to look at the new deluxe edition. There's a question over whether it's a limited, and last year's edition, which was illustrated by Ted Nasmith. The new edition, of course, is illustrated by Tolkien himself. So a while ago, I got this standard trade edition of the Ted Nasmith version, which came out about a year and a half ago, and it's got lovely illustrations. It's very beautiful. I've never read the Silmarillion. As I've said before many times in my fantasy videos, I've always been a bit of a critic of Tolkien, to say the least, and I've cleaved to the hard and fast school, to Jack Vance, to Poul Anderson, to Robert E. Howard, to Michael Moorcock, to Fritz Leiber, and I see these as the genuine sword and sorcery authors. Though of course arguably we're talking here about high fantasy, which is slightly different. However, if you look in the Encyclopedia of Fantasy, edited by Clute and Grant, you will see that they state quite clearly that the difference makes very, very little difference, and it's very hard to separate the two. So we'll take a look at the Nasmith edition up against the new deluxe illustrated from Tolkien. It's an unboxing, and here is the Nasmith edition in its trade case. It's just a plain box, and it's interesting, it sells Silmarillion Deluxe on there, and there's the ISBN number, International Standard Book Number, which designates that particular edition. So this came out 2021, and really it's this edition of this book that sort of got me interested in Tolkien again, because I saw it in a bookshop near where I work, not the bookshop I work in, and I thought it was really beautiful, and I was very, very tempted. And now this edition is pretty much out of print. I had the last one from a wholesaler, Britain's biggest wholesaler, for which, of course, a wholesaler is something only booksellers can use to acquire stock quickly. And basically I thought it's now or never, really. So this retails at £100. Now, because I get a discount and I'm part of a loyalty scheme where I work, I didn't pay that much, but we're going to take a look at it. So plain tray case, so we'll just pop that to one side. Now you'll notice on the box it doesn't say anything about it being limited. Now this is an interesting thing, because there's a lot of discussion online about whether the new one, the Tolkien Illustrated Deluxe, is limited. So there you go, and as you can see, beautiful orange there, and there's nothing I like more in the world than, you know, actually taking things out of shrink wraps, which is kind of perverse, but there you go. But I imagine we all love that moment. There's prospectus on the back, and as it says, worldwide first printing of just 4,000 copies. Now, of course, the implication of first printing is that there may be further printings. Well, of course there are, but it won't be the same edition. A true limited only has one printing. So that's the question really about the red leather, quarter leather Lord of the Rings from last year, and the new deluxe edition of the Silmarillion, which I'm just going to pop in the frame here spine wise. Now, of course, there are two of these. There's this one, which is the quarter leather. There's also a standard deluxe, which has a dust jacket, and it also has a toned text block with Tolkien sort of runes and what have you on it. So, but we look at the two in more detail. I've done a video about this one already, of course, which you can check out on the channel. So just to move on to the actual unboxing. Now, of course, as we know, the Silmarillion takes place way before Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien's sort of own idea was originally he wanted the two things published together, because it never happened, because Unwin weren't keen, and also it was never sort of finished in his lifetime. So of course I haven't prepared very well, so let me just get my scissor a moment. It's just very exciting to be unboxing and taking the shrink off such a beautiful book. And as I say, I've seen this on sale in another bookshop. I've seen lots of pictures online and what have you, but I've not actually seen one unpacked in the flesh. So this is really exciting. So I'm just going to snip that carefully there. Right, okay. Now, as I've said before, major publishers like HarperCollins, who are one of the big three in the UK, don't always do a fantastic job of limited editions in the way that a true small press will. But of course, we've come to expect certain things from small presses based on the way they've operated. But if you look at the history of limited editions in British publishing, I mean, lots of famous literary landmarks had a limited edition which was prior or simultaneous with the trade edition. I mean, there's some people like D.H. Lawrence, you know, and T.S. Eliot. It's not an unusual thing. And anybody who collects modern first from that period will tell you that, of course, some of the limiteds weren't numbered. We're used to limited editions being numbered, so the major publishers, they don't always put as much into the sort of care of that detail about the limitation with sort of book like this. So here's the prospectus, and it gives you a bit of blurb about the book. And as you probably know, there are many sort of unfinished manuscripts that are put together, which Christopher Tolkien, he worked with Guy Gavriel Kay, who was a best-selling fantasy author in the 80s. This was back in the 70s. They put together this, you know, text which is definitive as what it is. And it tells you all about it here. Double-sided fold-out poster, reproducing 2 paintings by Ted Nasmith. Large colour poster, definitive version of the text, specially reset for this edition. Now, any Tolkien scholar will tell you, and you don't have to be a scholar, that every time with Lord of the Rings particularly, it's been sort of reset, what have you, corrections are made to the text and other sort of errors creep in. And I know this from my own experience as an author. This has happened with books I've written. And, you know, so that's always going to be there, especially big complex texts like these. And printed in 2 colours, heavyweight acetate paper, including ribbon marker. Almost 50 full colour paintings by Ted Nasmith, which I think are beautiful, some for the first time, and 5 delicate pencil drawings. Fully cloth on hardcover, stamped in gold foil, inset miniature of Maglo Castle Silmaril, and custom built slipcase, 4,000 printing. So as you see, let's have a look at the slip. Really, really beautiful, lovely and colourful. Look at that, isn't that fantastic? Orange is a difficult colour, isn't it? Obviously the flame is there. I mean, I can't wear orange. It completely drains me. I think if you can wear orange, you're very lucky. So absolutely gorgeous. And a wraparound picture there. Really, really good. I do love slipcases. Now, of course, you can get slipcases custom built for your books, but it's really expensive. Now, this one is very tight, I will say. So a little bit of a shake there. Right. Okay. So absolutely gorgeous, full cloth. Look at that, really, really lovely, full cloth. Little inset there, gold gilt, super, unjacketed, of course. So let's have a look. An interesting thing, customization is something that not many people do, but because I've got a trade edition here, which I sort of fell for, and as you see, the trade edition has a dust jacket and the limited doesn't. Now, of course, the trade edition was simultaneous. Let's have a look at the end papers, and as you see, different end papers as well. So this is one way that a clever publisher will get you, and will get you to hang on to things. So I was thinking of letting this go because it's pretty much untouched, but let me just get the DJ off there. And you notice I say dust jacket, some people say dust wrapper. I've worked in the book trade for 38 years. I used to run a signed first editions club for several years for a top British book selling company. This is back in the 90s, and I've always called it a dust jacket. So let's have a look. Can I actually pop that on there? Let's see. It does fit because, of course, it's pretty much the same text block. So yeah, so I could arguably, it doesn't quite fit, so it is slightly thicker because the binding is different. So you notice you've got very plain sort of boards there in brown. So we'll just pop that back off and we'll take a look at that. So I don't think I'll be customizing. Now I've seen there's a difference with the end papers, I may well be hanging on to that. Now, of course, this affects virtually every edition, and just a very quick aside again, and we'll do a proper comparison later on. So there's the new deluxe quarter leather, which has come out this year with Tolkien's illustrations for the first time. Now there's a standard deluxe, which I'm not going to get, which you can look up. I'll put a picture in the video. I did put in my sort of roundup a few months ago of the sort of most important SF and fantasy books coming this autumn and winter. And of course, you don't get the dust jacket with that. You don't get the sort of sprayed text block, and you don't get the runes in it. So it is different. So it's a clever bit of publishing to do variants, because people do like to collect for its own sake. I'm not massive on that, but with certain things I do get tempted. And like I say, I'm really having a Tolkien moment currently. I'm rereading Lord of the Rings. I'm about halfway through Fellowship, which I've not read for many years all the way through. And I have to say I'm really enjoying it. I've always been very critical. We can come to that again. So yeah, beautiful, lovely. Nice, tight and square. Let's have a look. Let's crack it. And we've got the silk ribbon marker. There we are. And you'll see the signatures at the bottom there. Yellow and orange. Really, really nice job. So, you know, you've got to admire it. It is beautiful. But plain end papers. They're nice, sort of golden there, which does suit the binding, but different to the pictorial end papers of the standard trade edition. So look at that. This is double-sided. Isn't that pretty? So I do love his art. It's absolutely fantastic. And as I've said, what's really sort of hooked me back into Tolkien, or hooked me into Tolkien, is the sort of the iconography of the art and Tolkien's own art. I absolutely love. I love his pictures. I love his calligraphy. They have a real character of their own. They're instantly recognizable as his. And Nasmith is kind of the new artist of choice. Obviously, Alan Lee is sort of getting on in years. He's still doing stuff, and Alan Lee's stuff is lovely, but of course it's watercolours mostly, and it was important because it was used in the films. So there we are, two colours. We've got red lettering and white. Marvellous. And of course, internally, it should pretty much be the same as the standard. Now, this is interesting. This Illustrated Deluxe Slipcased edition, published by HarperCollins. Now, I'm looking for a number line here, and what's interesting about this, I'm seeing a Roman numeral here, which looks like Roman numerals, of 3. And this is where, you know, the controversy comes in, because a true limited 4,000 copies should only be one printing. The number line should be a single thing. So let's have a look at the trade here. Now, as I say, this was probably printed about the same time, so they tend to see them simultaneously. And you'll see there's a 1V there. So this suggests that there were at least 3 printings of this edition. Now, it says 4,000 copies. Now, strictly speaking, they should be the same printing. There may well be technical reasons why they're not. So, being a kind of a first guy, I'm kind of peeved by that. And I am going to sort of raise that and try and ask some questions, because I wanted to see a 1 in there. But that's really interesting. So I wonder if anybody's found any variant bindings, variant end papers or what have you. They had to do it maybe in 3 batches for cost reasons. Now, edition, as I've said before, refers to content. What we should say in the world of collecting is first printing or first impression. So if you've got a limited edition which is unnumbered, but there are different printings of it, so have a look at yours if you've got one, and please put something in the comments, as I'd love to know. And as I say, I've just got this, it's been out for over a year, so you do wonder whether they printed all 4,000 at once, or whether they said they were going to do 4,000. And there's the map, which is by Christopher Tolkien, and that, as you can see, is the end papers. So there we are. So I'm wondering about keeping this trade edition. That's very, very nice. It's nice to have these things. I don't like them if they interfere with keeping things in the slip, so we'll have to see about that. But yeah, this is very beautiful, and these illustrations are all in the standard trade, and they're absolutely fantastic, you know. But I am a real sucker for cloth binding and slip cases and what have you, so look at that, isn't that beautiful? And as I've not read the Silmarillion yet, I do apologise to the hardcore fan base out there who will know the text really well, for my comparative ignorance of it, except the fact I've been selling it for a long time, and I know it's about the first age and what have you. So yeah, so that is very beautiful, and I do love Ted Nasmith stuff, so that's lovely. So if anybody else has a copy out there, have a look at the colophon, the printing history on the rear of the full title page. Say that's the half title page, there's the full title page, and do let me know just there what you're seeing. Are you seeing a single Roman numeral? Are you seeing 2, meaning 2? Are you seeing 3? Because that to me says third printing. So arguably first edition, because it's the first variant, third printing. So in that case, it's only limited in the quantity. So when collectors say, I've got a first edition, we really all should start saying, I've got a first impression or first printing, because edition refers to content or variant. As I've said before, a novel stays in this first edition because edition is about content. If you know anything about non-fiction books, which I do because I sold them extensively for many years, I ran a university bookshop, and I can tell you when books are altered, when their text is revised, that's when they become a different edition. We get confused as we don't use enough terms. We should say really that this is a variant of that, but it is what it is. So do let me know. So, you know, I'm pleased with the book. I'm slightly peeved that that appears to be a third printing, and so a true limited should only be one printing really, but you do get these discrepancies coming up, usually for production reasons, so do let me know. So that's that. We'll have a look now at a comparison between this Nasmith and the new Tolkien Deluxe. Right, so let's take a look at the new Tolkien Illustrated Deluxe again, and as I say, there's an unboxing of this on the channel, and there's the chapbook, which I absolutely raved about, which I think is fantastic. Some of you may think, what's a chapbook? And I think they describe it as a booklet, but it's not a booklet. Incorrect terms are leaching into publishing at the moment because there are young people coming in who don't know the terminology, they haven't been taught it, and it's very important we stick the right terminology to avoid how can we say, confusion, and also because it's more beautiful. So that's a chapbook, which is effectively a really old term which has been used for hundreds of years, and it just means a very small book, and it's in stapled wraps. You see the staples there and in the center, and the cover is called wraps, stapled wraps. So that's there. So obviously we've got that, which you don't have, and this of course is new, came out about a week ago, and you also get a bigger variant of the Map of Beleriand by Christopher, Tolkien's third son, who he corresponded with a lot during the writing of LOTR, and you've got Tolkien's own map there as well. Now I've shown these in the other video, so I'm not going to linger on them. So there we go, quite sort of different and both quite beautiful. So that's interesting. So if you're sort of a collector of variants then, and you've already got the Nasmith, well, you know, they're different enough to be of interest. And as I say, Tolkien's own illustrations, as much as like the Nasmith, they're just fantastic. I just absolutely love them. So let's pick a typical one. The delicate sort of pencils and watercolors, and we know that in some cases they were colored by later hands. If you look at the book, the Art of JRRT Tolkien, it's interesting. There's a lot of it's taken from the early calendars, and I've been selling those calendars since 1984 when I started in the trade. So yeah, so sort of quite different, and you've got the frontispieces and what have you. So you can look at my video about the unboxing of that to see the difference. But I do think, you know, they're both very, very beautiful, and you know, there's no question of me letting either of them go. And to sort of add to the melange, there's the trade. So very, very interesting differences there. And that printing thing, I think, you know, that really has peeved me quite a bit. So be interested to see. So do let me know what you have in yours. On the question of whether the new Deluxe Quarter Leather, illustrated by Tolkien, is a limited edition, I think the jury's still out. Several people have contacted me and said, well, you know, Steve, it's not a limited. They're not stating it's a limited anywhere, and that's absolutely true. As far as I can tell, the Tolkien official bookshop website at the moment for HarperCollins is a bit of a mess. They're broken links. There aren't any pictures of this. By the time I post this, that might have changed. Normally, it's a very tidy website, and it's really good at showing you what variants are out there. But clearly at the moment, you know, there's something not quite right. So I did talk to Jane Johnson, who used to be the curator of the Tolkien Legacy HarperCollins, and Jane does still work for HarperCollins. She did say to me, gosh, I'm in the office for years, because she's focusing on her own career as a writer, and I've known Jane since the late 80s. She's still nominally George R.R. Martin's editor as well. She does some work on that. And last time I saw her was some time ago, was when George R.R. Martin came to Bath. So that must be 6 or 7 years. So we don't see each other very often, but we do stay in touch on social media. And she stayed at my house once back in the 80s with M. John Harrison when we did an event in Bath, which was very memorable. I've mentioned that before. So it's not saying anyway at the moment this is a true limited. But what Jane said to me was that she felt HarperCollins would make it a limited and would state that it was a limited, and it will be limited because, as I've said in the comments to the other video I made, fundamentally books like this don't stay in print forever. They are limited. A lot of books are limited because most books don't sell beyond their first printing. Most books are not commercially successful. It's the few which are that make it possible to do the other ones. But as I know from selling Tolkien books for 38 years, the industry around the Tolkien estate and the selling of the books and the correcting of the text and the making the variants, it's not done entirely for commercial reasons, but that is why it is done fundamentally. It's because there's continued interest, which has swelled, over the last 20 years of the Peter Jackson films and the current TV series, which we won't go into. So, it is one of those things. You can't discount that. So, again, I guess this adds up to a critique of mainstream publishers like HarperCollins not doing limited editions or deluxe editions in the same way those small press like Subterranean or Centipede will do. And I'm just going to critique them as well now. Now, to me, a true small press is something that does marginal material, often by major authors, that there's very little interest in. Now, when I started buying first editions back in the mid-80s, publishers like Kerosena and Morrigan, Drunken Dragon, Kinnell were active in the UK, and they did real limited edition. Kinnell did some things which had never been done in hardcover before. They paperback originals like Philip K. Dick's Our Friends from Frolics 8, they did that in a hardcover. But Morrigan and Kerosena and Drunken Dragon did true firsts, and they had very strict limitations, strict numbering, what have you, so you're on clear ground. So the jury's still out, so do give me your comments. Thanks for watching. As I say, there will be another Tolkien one coming up. Have a look at my fantasy playlist. As I say, I'm normally very critical of Tolkien and the way that his sort of legacy, it's more about the way his legacy has affected fantasy publishing and the way that everybody after a certain date jumped on that bandwagon and just sort of repeated the trilogy motif and all this sort of thing and what have you. Whereas before that, I think it was a bit freer and harder and faster, more interesting. So this is Outlaw Bookseller signing out for now. 3 editions of the Silmarillion. Am I going to hang on to that trade one? I guess I am, I suppose, but I don't know where I'm going to put all this, but I imagine you have the same problem. Bye for now.